Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at this Hitachi TRK 8190. It was a really well built machine back in the day, so although she's over 40 years old now, as long as these things have been relatively well looked after over the years, there's no reason why we can't get them serviceable in the modern age. Now this one's been with me for a little while and it's time to service it today, so hopefully you'll stick with me for the ride on this one. If you wanted to see the condition it was in when it arrived, do check out the unboxing video where I gave it an appraisal and tested out the functionality of the unit. I'll link that one in the description, so do go and check that one out. But today we're really just going to go ahead now and fix it up with a bit of luck. So a précis of it though is that it's dirty, it's grimy, the switches are a little bit noisy so they need a clean, but as far as the tape mech is concerned, I can't really test the audio or anything on that yet because the mech itself is seized up. Now the pause button is stuck down and that's linked to the timer standby there, and nothing is releasing at all, and none of the other buttons work either. So I'm guessing that the mechanism's dried up. There's probably dried grease and gunk in there, so that will all need to be addressed. So I've gone ahead and ordered a precision drive belt kit from Deck Tech. There are no less than 5 belts in here, so we're going to really go for it today and change all of those. I'm not sponsored by Deck Tech, but I just find in the UK their belts are excellent quality, their service is absolutely impeccable, and I just use them for any other decent kit that I feature on the channel. And so here we go then. So we've got a dirty unit with slightly dirty switches, slightly intermittent functionality, and a completely seized mech. So the first thing we'll do is get this opened, get it on the towel of destiny and see what we've got. Let's go. So here we go then. First thing we want to do is remove the 7 screws from the rear case. And the screws are all the same, so you don't have to confuse them, but put them safe anyway because this can be quite a complicated unit to work on. So just going to take the battery cover away and now remove the knobs as well. Partly because these need a good clean, and partly of course because we need to remove these just to get the faceplate away. And during this process, always be mindful of the loudness switch as well. That's on a separate small extension to the board inside. It's very delicate. This one works properly, as you can see, and it goes through quite a small aperture in the plate. So just be careful whenever you're mounting or dismounting the front plate that you don't damage the loudness button. So the next stage is just to remove the back cover now, and be mindful of any connections to the circuit board and speakers. And so here's the board. Now there are 2 cables just off to one corner out of frame, and they are white and yellow. They're antenna cables, and you just have to be careful when you first open the back case on this because they do have a tendency to wrap themselves around the ferrite rod just there. So don't force the back case when you pull it off. Make sure that you remove them gently just from the pins on the radio board just there. So that's the white and yellow radio antenna ones. And then we come to this side. So we've got the negative and positive supply to the board, which are marked up appropriately, and you've also got the blue one, which I believe goes to the power status light. But in any event, we remove those 3 there, and there is the back cover. So the aerials are attached, as is the master switch for the power, and the transformer and all that kind of stuff is in there. You can see it needs a dust, it needs a clean, but effectively the whole thing is now away, and that gives us the unit proper inside. Now this is quite a complicated beastie, and the main thing to realise with this is that you want to take some pictures before you start as to the pathway and the routing of all of the different cables and connectors. Some of them can stay in place, others have to come away, depends what you're doing with it really. You've got your headphone circuit board just down here, which can come away. You've got various boards that are relating directly to the cassette control mech. You've got things like the earth cable here for the shielding plate, all sorts of stuff, and they've all got ties and cable binds and clips and everything else. So just familiarise yourself a little bit with what's what and where's where. And then, as I say, you can then unpick the cables as you go, depending on exactly what it is you need to do. But effectively, this whole section here, once you've removed the 7 main screws that hold the back case on, really this whole thing is pretty much free, except that it's tied in by the cables at the moment and cable ties. But the radio board and the cassette mech, the amp board and everything kind of comes out in one go. So it's just a case of whether you need to leave that in place because you want the speakers attached, or whether you actually want to get the whole thing out to clean and service it and then put the speakers back on after. Just depends what you're looking to do, really. So I'm going to make a bit of a start anyway. The main thing for me is to clean the switches, and here are, for example, there's your radio selector switch along this one here, and then there's your function switch on here, which is via that actuator, which is your radio, your cassette and your phono stage there. So it just depends what you're looking to do. So I'm just going to go ahead now, clean some of these switches in a bit, and also start unpicking the cables so we can get the whole chassis out. And I've just raised the unit now onto some bits of foam just to suspend the speakers off the bench, and that allows me then to press eject. Once the cassette door is open, that allows a bit more freedom of play to start removing the actual chassis. And just be careful at this stage of a couple of things. One, don't put these sharp feet that are on the front of the chassis through the speaker cones. Be careful of that. But also just make sure nothing's pulling too tight. There isn't a great deal of flexibility or movement in these cables, so just make sure you're not overstressing any of the junctions on the cables or anything like that. And I've just unpicked the cable clips from around the speakers to free up basically the headphone sockets, the speaker cables, that sort of thing. And you can probably just get a look in there now and see what's what. So we're left with basically the speakers in there and a couple of daughter boards. We just got to be careful really now because all the rest of this is out. And yeah, not too bad. Looks a little bit dusty, but not too bad. So here we can actually start to see now what's going on with the actual cassette mech, and we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. But the first thing I want to do at this stage, yes, I'll be going through cleaning the switches, possibly adjusting the motor speed, certainly changing or fall belts, cleaning the idler tyre, cleaning the heads, the capstan, the pinch roller, all that sort of stuff. But the first thing I want to do is just make sure this cassette mech is actually going to be okay. And if you remember, we've got this depressed button just here, and that's the pause button, which is linked via the standby. And you can see this actuator arm here, and that links the standby to the pause button. And for whatever reason, that's not disengaging. Now it should actually be on a rocker switch there, like so. And that's very, very lazy. So at this juncture, I am very, very carefully just going to lube up some of the mechanism that pertains to that mechanism there, and hopefully we'll start to lubricate it. Okay, I've loosened up the mech a little bit, so we've got play, stop, and our fast forward and rewinds work. But unfortunately, oh, and the stop eject, sorry, the eject slider's working, but the pause doesn't want to know right now. So at the moment, it's in the timer pause position. Now it should, that pull should actually come out like so. But unfortunately the pause doesn't want to release. It feels like it's a mechanical jam as much as anything else. Not sure what's stopping that or why it would be stuck in that position. Everything looks good topside, so what I think I'm going to have to do is just remove the whole mech now. Now unfortunately there's loads of solenoids, there's the various heads, cables, we've got all the music search stuff that pertains to that on these circuit boards here. So I'm going to try and just carefully see if I can actually just lift out the mech. It's just a bit annoying because I would have liked that to have freed up by now. It should have done by rights. You can see that that wants to work, but it's stuck in down position. And if I press play, you can see the pause wants to just pull away, but it won't release. Most odd. So I'm going to take a look at this mech anyway, just see if I can get it out, have a look at the back side of it and see exactly what's going on. So we've got the one screw down the side just there, one through this gap, there's one for the motor mount plate, and there's one down in this corner which actually retains the head cables. They're all the same as each other. Yeah, the motor cables actually run through the board. And try and unpick those. Fiddly little things that they are. And now we've got to unpick them from this side. Like so. And we're very, very tightly bound now by an earth from the back. So I'm going to try and trace where that's from. Might actually be easier to unscrew this actual board. This thing is properly tight on there now. Okay, I've traced the black cable all the way from the through the back of the casing back onto the main board and slackened that off. Now we're held in by the solenoid cables. So we'll try and push those through as well. Like so. Okay guys, I cut a bit of that out, but basically I've just been cracking on here and disassembling lots of things. So loads of multi-plugs have had to come away from the board. We've got the play and record heads and the mic mixing multi-plug and all that sort of stuff's had to come out, which is all kind of these wiring looms here. Also the leaf switches and associated board is all out, which is all this kind of stuff here. That's all had to be unscrewed and removed from the mechanism. There's also the other switch, leaf switch from the mech, which has been unscrewed and is on the loom over there. What else have we got? It's all just a mess. Everything's going to have to come away. There's two more things that need to come away now. One is the solenoid, because again it's still tied and tethered by these two white leads, and they just go into all the looms and everything else through there. It's just horrible to get to. It's going to be easier just to remove these two screws and get the actual solenoid away. And then all that does leave us with, or will leave us with, is the black and red ones, which are for the motor. Now you may see, if I can bring it around, let me just get the right angle for you, that the black and red ones here are part of and soldered into the motor, but they're also unfortunately soldered onto the circuit board at the rear as well. So as I say, once I've got this solenoid unscrewed, I'm going to turn the whole thing over, desolder the motor cables, then we can put everything away, give it a good clean and a service. Now I still cannot free up this pause. I don't know what's the matter with it at the moment, so I'll be able to look at that properly once we've got the whole mechanism out. We can put it to one side, work on it properly, analyze what's wrong with it, give it a clean, service it, and you'll see you'll see from the belts here as well, if you look at that, they've wrapped themselves, they've just turned to goo. It is everywhere. There's that black tar is all over the spindles. The flywheel there, you can see, is absolutely covered in sticky fragmented bits of belt, and the intermediate pulley there is the same, that's broken and thrown in the belt as well. So there's just so much stuff to do with this, it's unreal. Now ordinarily you might get away with leaving things semi-tethered if you're just changing belts and things, but because this is going to need a proper disassembly, a decent clean, decent scrape, new belts, head, capstan, pinch roller clean, 5 new belts to put on. Hopefully we can free up this pause mechanism as well. I think we've just got to bite the bullet, carry on disassembling it, and get the mech out on the bench. Rightio, well that's the bad framing, I know, but that's the solenoid away at least. So that's that bit. So as I say, all that remains now is to try and get this all turned over, desolder the motor. Next time you see me, with a bit of luck, it'll be a sigh of relief, a cup of coffee by my side, and we'll start looking at the mechanism. It's funny really, but actually there's quite a lot of play ironically now. The mech is here and I can pull that probably, I don't know, 10 inches away, and probably be able to turn it around as well and work on it. But to be honest, I've got to the stage where I've literally put in, I don't know, 95 or 98% of the work. There's literally, there's countless cables all over the place now. It really is, these things get out of hand real quick, and I'm just like, do you know what, for the sake of 2 little leads now, the whole thing can just come out, and as far as I'm concerned, and I'll just get it on the bench. And it'll also stop the fatigue as well, because as you're constantly turning mechanisms over and twisting them and cleaning and stuff like that, these things are only going to fatigue or fray, and if they don't go there, they'll end up going inside the motor, and I don't want that happening. So just pull this away, and hopefully we'll be on our way to start putting it back together. Right, okay, there's the motor leads coming away. So actually I can very carefully just kind of put everything else away. You can't see much at the moment. Let me just zoom out. Probably still can't see much, to be fair. But anyways, this is all just very carefully. To be honest, the whole thing may as well just come apart anyway. It's only held on by the speaker cables now. So that's kind of the mess you make of all of that bit. But what it does do, if I put this very safely to one side, what it does do now is give us our mech. So I'm just going to reframe this, get you in, and we'll see what we're up against. Alrighty, well here we are. So got the mech out, got my coffee, and oh, by the way, if you do fancy buying me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. No obligation, but it's pretty cool if you can help me out with the cost of running the channel and stuff. But anyways, back to this. I think what we'll do is try and see if we can free up that pause still. These belts, you can see, are a mess. You can have a proper look at it now. They're really just disgusting. They're everywhere. They're broken, they've fragmented, they've turned to tar, they're just a mess. And I've been looking at this mech here now for the pause, and it doesn't want to come out. Everything looks okay. There's nothing obviously broken, there's nothing missing. So I think what I'm going to do is get this flywheel out, see if I can see what's going on better underneath that mech. Now to that end, I want to get the adjustment screw out first. So I'm just going to put a little bit of acetone on there and leave that to soak for a minute, and that should get rid of the locking compound, and then we can get this flywheel away, hopefully, alongside the screws of course on the front. It's all good fun. I'm also going to get this cage away as well So we've got one screw just here. Okay, and I think it's just one on this side. You won't be able to see what on earth's going on here, but basically there's one screw. That's it. Okay, one that came out from the hole just there, one just in here, and I'm hopeful, there we go, we can remove the cage, so we didn't need to take the adjustment screw for the thrust out anyways. Right, and here we have access to the capstan, and there's an oil retaining washer which we just got to watch out for, just there, tiny little thing, so we'll put that in the pot. and that gives us the access to the flywheel, so we can give that a decent clean in a moment. But what does that tell us about the pause mech? Right, is that just gummed up in there, or is that bent in some way? It's going to get a bit of alcohol in there, because that will help dissolve the grease, but it will also flash off in due course as well. So there we go, that got hung up there. Nice. Basically that pawl had got stuck, I think, got jammed up. Right, let's just turn it over and check, and pause on, pause off, play. Okay, well that's a relief actually, because that was when we first bought this, if you remember, that was the one thing that was problematic, and we suspected it was probably just a bit of grime, but now we know we've freed that up. That's great news. Good. I'll just clean some of the old grease out and put some new lube on there, so now that we've got the pause working properly. On and off, lovely. The timer also works, that pulls the pause on and off, fantastic. And then play, fast forward and rewind, all nice, good. So I'm just going to mop up any excess lubricant here, just make sure nothing gets on any of the tyres or anything like that, and then it'll be time to get these belts on. But I think just before we do any of that, I'm just going to clean the heads actually. Now you may see they're rather dirty. Not really rusty though, to be honest, not corroded, just dusty, just grimy. Yeah, it looked pretty good actually, to be fair. Right, so I'm going to clean up this pinch roller as well. It looks to be in pretty good shape, to be fair. So I'm just going to clean that up. I'll also do the idler tyre as well, and then we'll get on and I think get these belts on. There seems to be enough meat on that idler tyre. It doesn't look to be in any bad condition. It's not cracked or anything, so hopefully that'll be okay. Now it's just time to make the inside sparkle a bit as well. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it shouldn't be nice and clean. Rightio, well we've got 5 belts to go on, but before we open the packet and before we even get the old belts off, what we need to do is clean up any residue, and I'm going to start actually with this extremely heavy flywheel. Now what I'm going to do here is just basically scrape away as much as I can, and then once we've got most of that off, we should be able to just go around with a baby wipe or some isopropyl alcohol, anything like that. Just start cleaning it up. So I'm going to make a start on this horrible little job, and I'll be back in about 3 weeks. Just as a matter of interest, I also find these plastic sort of blades quite useful as well, just for scraping. You don't want to use anything metallic if you can help it, to be honest. You don't want to risk sort of scratching and scraping the actual metalwork. That's better, nice and clean now. And I've also cleaned the capstan as well, just for good measure. We'll do it again at the end once we reinstall it, but it's just nice to give everything a decent clean whilst we can get to it. So that's that to one side. Next thing we want to do is remove this delightful rubbish from the pulley as well. And again, we're just going to carry on as we are, keep cleaning until it's all off. Right, well I want to be able to spin this fairly freely to clean it, so I am actually going to lose the first of the belts now. So this one goes on the bottom pulley over there, and you can see that one's not a nice little egg shape, so that's deformed. So that's one that did survive. And I think the auto stop belt, I think the little belt on this side as well can come away. And then we've got the counter belt that can come away. So we've managed to well, there we go. We refer to these as square belts and flat belts because of the profile, but that is almost like a square belt. Okay, yeah, technically rectangular, but look at that. I've never actually seen one that's come off like that before. That's pretty impressive. So we got that one. We got a square one. We got an egg. Nice. Anyway, none of them are round, so that's worth doing. So we've got a rectangular. We've got an egg. And what's that? An oval? Ellipse? I don't know, you tell me. Roundel? Squaredle? There we go, it's like play school. What's through the egg-shaped window? Well, there's the belts off at least. What a mess. But anyway, so we got all that done. I'm going to go and clean my hands in a second because this stuff does stain. These disintegrated belts do get everywhere. So I'm going to have a bit of a clean up. But basically then we're in... Oh no, hang on. Ugh, spoke too soon. Okay, well that pulley's as clean as I'm going to get it realistically. But we've still got these spindles to do. So that's pretty grisly work. That's going to take me a little while. So I'm just going to go away now and get all this gunk and what have you off of here. I mean, the belts have literally just thrown themselves. What they do is they break, of course, and then they just snarl up. Oh dear me. Yeah, I mean that's just going to be grim. That's just going to take a while. I mean, it's just going to be a job, this one. So I'll be back when that's done. Ugh. Well, that's all of the belt residue cleaned off of the spindles, so I'm just going to put a drop of oil just down onto the motor spindle. Lovely. Spinning silently, and I'll just go back with a bit of alcohol around the base just to make sure that there's nothing on the belt contact surfaces. But that's lovely. Good stuff. Okay folks, I think we're doing alright, aren't we? So far we've got the whole thing out, got the mech out and all of the contacts for that. We've removed 3 belts and the absolute remains of 2 more, which are on these cloths and assorted Q-tips around the place. Also cleaned the capstan and the flywheel. We've got the cage for the thrust plate there for the flywheel as well to go back on in due course. We've got our 5 new belts ready to go back on shortly as well. So really, I think everything's had a bit of a clean on here. We've re-lubricated the various parts we wanted to. We have cleaned the heads, the capstan we've done, the pinch roller we've cleaned. We've also put some rubber renew on the idler tyre and indeed the pinch roller. We've oiled the spindle and re-cleaned that for the there's two belts in fact that run over the motor spindle. So yeah, all in all, I think we're pretty much all set to start putting the thing back together again. So I think it's time just to get the kettle on, make a coffee and think about getting all this straight. So let's get these belts on, shall we? I think we'll start on this side, and why not? As I say, I've got a set here from Deck Tech and there are 5 belts in here. So I've cleaned my hands as best as I can, and there are the 5 belts. We'll get started. First one's the easiest to identify because it's nice and small. So we just make sure that doesn't twist or fall off. Yep, pretty happy with that one. So whilst we're here then, I think we'll move on to the counter belt. So we should be able to feed that through. Like so. Perfect, that's that one done. Righty-ho. And then on the reverse side, we want to just be able to put this one, if we can, that's it, onto the bottom pulley. Make sure that's not twisted. Nice. Good. And the next one is the top of that pulley onto the bottom pulley on the motor spindle, like so. And again, just making sure that's turning freely, which it is. And then finally over here will be the main motor drive belt, which will go in there. What I'm going to do again is put a drop of oil and just the tiniest drop of oil onto there. We must remember to clean the capstan as well once we put it through the other side. But that's effortless now, that's beautiful, because ultimately that one will go over the pulley marvellous. So that's all the 5 belts on. As I say, fitting the belts is the really easy part. It's ridiculously easy to do in terms of putting them on. It's cleaning the pulleys and everything first, really, to be honest. Oh, and the other thing as well, it's not so easy with these, is actually trying to figure out what belt sizes they are in the first place. If you've got some of these models and they aren't already prescribed as kits, can be quite good fun figuring out the belt path for some of these. But there we go, so that's all done. Marvellous. So the next stage is to get the little cage back on, screw that into place. I'm just going to fit the little oil retaining washer for the capstan. And then clean the capstan again itself, just to get rid of any potential oil residue. squeaky clean. So the pause works, and then play. Yeah, good, marvelous. Okay, well, that looks like the mech's ready to go. It's got all the 5 belts on it, everything else is clean, so it's just a case of putting the whole thing back together. So I hope you were watching carefully for the first part of this video, because I might need some help putting this back together again. Anyway, right, good stuff. Let's crack on then and start reversing the entire procedure. Right, just before we put the mech back in, I'm just going to go ahead real quick and clean the switches. So I'm literally just going to put a little bit of contact cleaner and some lube into all the sliding switches, and also into the selector switches as well. So again, just working that through a little bit. May as well do it now whilst we're thinking about it, and then we can concentrate on wiring the mech back in. Okay folks, so it's the time to put it all back together. Do you remember at the top of the video I said that how much of this you take out really depends on what you're looking to do with it? And in terms of what we wanted to get out of it, which was to look at the tape deck, we kind of did the bare minimum, as it were. We got the chassis away and left it kind of hooked up as much as we could, because we thought we might actually hook the speakers up as well and give it a test run. But of course you've got to, you know, basically get the motor away and all that sort of stuff as well, so it becomes a little bit of hard work, if you like, a bit long-winded. So the plan now is to do the other method of disassembly, as it were, just before I reassemble. And all that I've got to do for that then is to withdraw the whole board as it was. So I haven't done anything new yet, but basically there's a speaker multi-plug on there, and once that's away, all we've really got to do is unscrew the headphone circuit board, and that will come away, and then that should really bring everything away for us, and we'll go from there. And this slides out one way or the other. I'm just trying to remember which way it goes. Ah, there we go, it rotates. That's it. Okay, good. So with a bit of luck, I'm a little bit tangled up, just give me 1 second. Tangled myself up here. There we go. Alright, so where we're at now is we've literally got the chassis here, which has just got the speakers in and the mic mix in, and there's your 4 speaker plug there. Look, your 4-way wiring loom for that. And then if I just move that out of the way, we've then got the radio board, the amp board and all that goes with it. And you can see now the secondary and sort of daughter boards and stuff. This one's got all the leaf switches on it for the tape mech. And then if I just turn that over, you'll see the other leaf switches there. We've got, let me zoom in, we've got a leaf switch here, a leaf switch there, everywhere a leaf switch. So yeah, there's 3 on that one, 1 on there, and 1 down there, plus the solenoid as well that's got to be screwed back onto the mech. So you can see it's all, there's a lot going on here, but by removing this part of the chassis away from the actual housing, it will then allow us to be able to start to feed this back in and hook up all the different daughter boards, switches, motor, all that kind of stuff. So right, here we are, and I think I might actually make myself another quick coffee before we start this, because it's going to be a little bit of a game. Rightio, so we are at the reconstruction stage, as it were, and all I'm just going to do is check and clean the leaf switches, make sure they're all okay. So we've got 1, 2, plus those 3 leaf switches just down here as well. Just going to generally clean the interior parts. I've got a bunch of knobs and switches and things that need cleaning. The cases need cleaning, and we've got all the screws here, which I highly recommend egg crates, by the way, and stuff like that. They're brilliant for keeping your screws separate. So we've got this one here for the headphone board, we've got the solenoid attachment screws and washers just there. We've got the two small machine screws for the leaf switches on the side just there. Those are the main cassette mech mounting screws, and those are the two that mount the triple leaf switch to the main mech. So everything's sort of labelled and sorted. So yeah, just going to give it a bit of a clean, and I'll start getting the cassette mech in, and I'll catch you at some point in a little while. So a quick update as to where we are. I found it easier. The first one to do is the leaf switch on the side just here, and also to connect the solenoid, which I've now got on the side just here as well. That allows those cables to be tucked underneath and out of the way. I also just put a single cassette mech mounting screw into one of the holes, just to act as a free hand for me really, so that I could then mount the leaf switch board just there, and indeed the final switch just underneath the button as so. So now we've got all the leaf switches back in and the solenoid. So I'm now going to just check the photographs I took before, so I can reroute some of these cables back around the side and make sure the cable ties and clips are all in the right place and all that kind of thing. And then we'll be ready to start feeding the multi-plugs back onto the back of the board. Alright, so she's all back together. We've got the solenoid on there, we've got all 5 leaf switches, everything's pretty much tucked away and hooked up at the back. We've now put on we're about to put our power supply on. So we've got 13.5 volts, which you probably can't quite see out of frame, but I'm just going to hook that up to the board now. Hopefully that'll stay on. We'll just try the radio while we're here, if I can find the switch. Yep. So what the actuator for the radio is just here. That'll fall off otherwise. We have to put that back on when we assemble the whole unit. So I've just manually adjusted the switch there. So let's go on to play, see if we can get a tape going. Alright, fast forward. You can see the counter going round just there. And rewind. And play. Okay, there we go. Good. And fast forward. You can see the counter going. And rewind. And play. Good stuff. Alright, well, the mechanism seems to work. The belts all seem to be doing what they're supposed to. So I'm just going to run this for a little while longer, just run it through a few more checks and check the tape speed and stuff like that. Hopefully we'll be in a position to start putting it all back together again. We also just check the auto stop as well, so I'm just going to press play. It's at the end of the tape now on the leader tape. There we go, and there's the auto stop. So yeah, I think we've got a go situation. Happy days. And I've just noticed whilst I've been running it for a little while that it's playing okay, fast forwarding okay, but rewind is a little bit intermittent. Let's have a look. I've actually cleaned this particular idler already with some rubber renew and sorted it out. However, I think it'd be quite nice to see if we can actually improve it. So to that end, I've just got a spare spindle here and taken the idler tyre off. This particular spare one is about 0.2 millimeters bigger than the one that's on there, and I might just change it for that one. But I've been going through my O-ring collection and I've actually got one here that is the right size pretty much. So I've just put that onto, let's see, just put that onto there, and I'll give it a bit of a clean with some alcohol. But basically what I want to try and do is see if that fits or not. So I'm just going to get the spindle off this one. And so first up we just remove the tiny little washer. Just put that to one side. and then there we go, we'll retrieve the spindle, and there's the spring that goes inside as well. So we'll put that one to one side, and I can tell actually that this one is pretty gnarled. Forgive my really bad camera work today, but basically the rubber that goes around the bottom of this is pretty gnarled up compared even to my spare one. Gosh, I get some awards from my camera work today, eh? But basically, long story short, the one that's on there at the moment, which engages with the idler pulley, is not working too well. So what I'm going to do is put this one on, just see if it clears the brake, just for a bit of fun, see if that actually helps and gives us a stronger rewind. So what I was trying to say very badly just now is that there is an idler tyre that runs around the base of the spindle, and that activates on the idler pulley, so that when you actually go to rewind the tape, it engages with that little rubber, and if that rubber wears, which it will do over time, obviously it loses a bit of traction and becomes marginal, and then the performance of the rewind is restricted or, you know, compromised. So as I say, I've got a spare one here, which is a tiny bit. It's about 0.2 millimeters bigger than the other one, so it should in theory be better. But I've just actually put a totally different O-ring in there, which clears everything and may even work. So what I'm going to do is put a tape in. This is legit for the first time here. See what happens. Okay, fast forward and rewind. Here we go. Good. Alright, so let's try another tape. Find one that I know that works. Bit of U2. Play. There we go. Fast forward and rewind. Yeah, that's actually a lot better. Yeah, all those other tapes I've got, they're ones I use for sort of demos and testing and stuff, and they get snarled and they get chewed up and spat out and crinkled up and misaligned. So this one is a legit pre-recorded tape here, bit of U2. So because we've got the confidence that this mech is going to work, I'm quite happy to try this tape. So again, press play. What it does mean is I can't play it for long because the content matches, but fast forward and rewind. There we go, that's much better now. So that little that O-ring in there, which is acting now as a new idler tyre, is absolutely fine, and in fact more reliable and better than the old one was. So we'll call that a win. Okay, it seems like we're pretty much good to go. So probably for the 20th time of saying, but I'm just checking through in my head. Leaf switches are all on, solenoids in, cables are all tucked away, everything's wired up where it needs to be. The play, fast forward and rewind all work. New idler tyre on for the rewind. I've also checked the music search system as well. There's basically an automatic music search via this system here, which effectively listens for quiet parts in the tape. You can hear it quietly sort of listening in, as it were, on fast forward and rewind, and then it'll auto stop to the next track depending on what you've selected. So I've just quickly checked that whilst I was here. Also just tweaked the tape speed a tiny bit as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So all that remains is for me to go and give the case a decent clean and polish, get in the nooks and crannies, get this chassis back in, button it up, and with a bit of luck you shall see me in a couple of minutes with a final reveal, and hopefully hopefully I'll be in a good mood and I won't be coming back to you and saying you'll never believe what's happened, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Hopefully we've tested it and it's all working well now. So good stuff. Right, here we go then, let's get it back together. I'll see you on the other side. So here it is then, a Hitachi TRK 8190E, all sorted, We've given it a decent strip down and deep clean and polish. Also cleaned the switches and got everything moving freely as well. But the main issue with this really was the cassette mech. So if you remember, the pause button was stuck down and it would not move for all the tea in China. So we had to, in the end, disassemble part of the mech really, just deep clean, remove all the old dried up grease and re-lubricate it. Also replace all 5 belts, as well as replacing the rewind idler tyre and cleaning the heads, the capstan, the pinch roller, and just giving it a general sort of checking over really and all that kind of stuff. So we'll just put the radio on first.
Vote Lib Dem, 25% said they'd vote Conservative.
And you can hear that, and that's actually on long wave at the moment. Now I've got the LED lights on, which kind of interfere with the FM, but suffice it to say, the FM stereo is absolutely superb on this. In fact, what I could do is very quickly turn the lights off, and you will hear that. So let's have a look.
It happened between Lewis Hamilton.
There we go. So all sorts of different stations on there. I'll get the lights back on. So we'll just put a cassette in there now, and it's a beautiful eject mechanism on that, really soft. And play. Bit of Genesis and fast forward, and you'll see the counter working away there. Also rewind. It's had the new idler on there now, so that's rewinding really strongly. And back to play. And I won't let it run all the way through, but I've just selected the DRPS there, and you can see that sort of listening through the music for the breaks in the track, and it'll go down to number 1 in a minute as it sort of passes through. You'll see that just there. But basically what that will do is go ahead and search for particular tracks on the tape there, given enough of a break between them, of course, because it listens for sort of about 4 seconds or 5 seconds of silence, I think. So anyway, there we go then. There's the Hitachi TRK 8190E, all cleaned up, got 5 new belts, had a general service, and it's working and ready again for service. So hope you find that interesting. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks very much indeed, as always, to my existing subscribers. Your support is massively appreciated. Please check out some of my other videos as well. We've got all sorts of stuff on the channel. But stay safe. I'll be back soon. Until then, take care and goodbye.